Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Empire led by VOLKMAR the Grim, and I'm going to be facing off against a Vampire Count's opponent, who I believe is using Helm Gorst. So, a nice Grim in the Grave DLC matchup, and it should be a fun one for you guys. So I have a bit of an unusual build. It's a very turtle-heavy strategy, so hopefully you guys don't mind that. But in the front line, I have Sterling's Revenge as well as these two Free Company Militia. So basically, I'm going to use these guys as skirmishers. I'll probably end up moving them up, do a little bit of initial damage to these zombies and other frontline units. And then I'll pull them back in this defensive pocket that I made, and hopefully they'll be able to get like good angles on targets like crypt horrors and those type of things. So that was my plan with those. And then I have basically a full circle of spearmen, very good against the vampire counts, very cheap. And when you have VOLKMAR with them, his buffs can actually make them into decent combatants. So not a bad choice there. In the back, two great swords to deal with Graveguard, the Sternsmen, all that type of thing. And then this is where the fun stuff begins. I have the Hammer of the Witches, which does do magic damage. So against ethereal units, it just absolutely punishes them. And then I also have the Temple off here, which is, I found it actually to be pretty good in the Vampire Counts matchup. You can use its Nets of Amnatoc to snare cavalry, to slow down the enemy forces, and then just absolutely blast their leadership into oblivion. So a big fan of the Temple Hoff. And I also have a Bright Wizard with the Lower Fire. So again, a good choice against the Vampire Counts as well for just the magic damage it enables, as well as just the 22% buff is not bad by any means. So quick rundown of my army. My opponent over here, front line of zombies. He has two groups of Cairn Wraiths for the armor piercing, so if he can get those onto my greatswords, that will be pretty good. He also has Crypt Horrors in the back, three groups. He has the Sternsmen, a very good choice. Definitely one of the best regiments of renown available to the Vampire Counts. And then he also has the Claw of Nagash. Personally, I think the regular Mortis engine is a little bit better, but regardless, not better. I mean, obviously this one is better, but just in terms of cost effectiveness, I don't know if the slow is worth it in this matchup. Then he has Hellman over here, who's on his Pimp My Ride chariot. Looks like he's getting ready for action. Very cool looking. He's got his bell ringing up here, so he's ready to party as always. And then he has two groups of Blood Knights. So something about this kind of turtle type strategy that I'm doing over here is that most people, when playing against the Empire, will compensate very heavily for Demogryph Knights. So he was probably assuming I'd bring two groups of Demogryph Knights, or at least a group, and he really wanted to win that cavalry engagement. But now that I don't have that, it's kind of an out of meta pick. So people aren't going to expect kind of these funny shenanigans when you try strategies like this. So basically, that's it, guys, and we'll go ahead and get started. So my opponent is advancing. I told my artillery units to hold fire because I did not want them wasting ammo on zombies. In a very close, long, attritious game, the cannons can come back online even after they've been shut down, and it really helps to have that ammunition. So again, not good to use the Hammer of the Witches or the Temple Hoff on zombies. So make sure, if you're in this situation, to turn off the automatic firing and just wait for the juicy stuff back here. So you'll see the cannons go ahead and take a nice pot shot over here, and look how much damage they do to those Blood Knights. That was really good. I mean, what is that? About 15-20% of their HP gone in a single stroke. So I definitely cannot complain. And the Hammer of the Witches is very good against these type of targets. So, and thankfully for me, also these Blood Knights don't have armor piercing. And again, since I don't have the cavalry, they're not really going to get an anti-large bonus against anything except maybe the Temple Hoff if they can get on that. So right now my opponent is basically just fanning out in the wings. He's sending this group of Blood Knights around and this group over here while his main force progresses here. So he does have these spooky, scary Crypt Horrors, Claw of Nagash, they're all rolling up. But now they're going to start getting targeted. And you can see the Hammer of the Witches took its first shot at the Claw of Nagash and is actually doing pretty good, having done about 10-15%. About 10% HP damage, and they're going to continue to generate results, but the real magic is going to start when the Temple Hoff gets online and takes its first shot over here, which will be very exciting. So you can see in the front line here, my Free Company Militia are getting ready for the zombie horde to come, and these are very cool units. And I actually think they're decent skirmishers against the Vampire Counts to have in the front, because they can usually deal with Vampire Counts fodder units pretty well, even in melee. So just my 2 cents on that, but they'll be shooting here shortly as soon as the opponents get in range. And you can see the Temple Hoff is just waiting to fire up, and now you can see the Free Company Militia taking some shots at the zombies, and they're not going to do a ton of damage, but zombies have very low leadership, guys, so any damage you can do to them to get them that much closer to crumbling is going to be pretty nice. So they're going to shoot here in this front line, and you can see pretty decent spread, especially from the Sterling's Revenge over here. They're really doing some good damage. And right now the Temple Hoff is online. It's getting ready to shoot, and this guy is definitely going to be in for a bad ride here. So you guys will go ahead and get a nice scenic shot of this, and you can see the spooky banshees flying around, and right there, that's pretty much dead, guys. I mean, the Temple Hoff is so good at just annihilating these type of targets, and down it goes. That's all she wrote for the 1600 resources right there, so definitely cannot complain at all. Very happy about that. So as soon as they get close to the Free Company here, the Free Company guys are just going to pull back to the main line, and they're very fast, guys. For infantry, I think they're in the upwards of 35 move speed, so definitely good. So I'll move the one group back and then fan this group out here, and you can see, look at that, guys. The Tempelhof just one-shotted Helman Gorst. I wish I had been paying attention to that, but it literally one-shotted him. Just melted him. So man, that was pretty much the whole reason I wanted to show you guys this game, is just because of how ridiculous that was. I mean, that's just brutal. I mean, there's not much you can do about that, but regardless, my opponent is charging in the back line with the Blood Knights. You know, it's the best situation he can do is try and get through and penetrate here. But regardless, the Greatswords, they do have the armor piercing, and these guys are heavily armored. So that, with the Cascading Fire Cloak, they're able to fend them off pretty well, even with that shock damage. In the front line, you can see I repositioned the Free Company Militia to the wings, and they're just helping to pick off fodder here. And this group right here is actually going to turn around and start to shoot at these Cryptors, which is good because Cryptors are not armored, guys. And these guys, they don't have armor piercing, but they'll do pretty decent damage against these type of units. So they're doing well here, but unfortunately the Sterling's Revenge did get tied up with some cam rates out there. So in the meantime, I netted down his troops out here, and you can see VOLKMAR is also here. So the Greatswords and VOLKMAR are doing a pretty good job cutting through these Blood Knights, and this is a very cost-effective situation for me. So they have the Grand Shields of Faith, the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, and that is going to just make them win this battle so heavily. And he's continuing to try and cycle with the Blood Knights, but again, there isn't really any good areas he can go. If he goes over here, you know, he's going to get caught by these Spearmen I was keeping in reserve, and it was just a rough situation all around. So in the meantime, you know, he's still putting up a great fight despite the fact that he lost his Lord. And I did put the Flaming Sword of Ruin over here on these guys to make them do that extra damage to the Cairn Race, and you can see the Cairn Race are just getting taken out by these cheap Spearmen, which is very, very good. At the same time, Sterling's Revenge, I did pull them into melee over here because the Cryptors did break through. And Sterling's Revenge, they're pretty, have good combat stats. I mean, across the board, they have pretty high melee defense, decent melee attack at 38, so they're definitely holding their own and getting through those Cryptors. So in the meantime, though, he was able to outmaneuver me a little bit with these Blood Knights and got them onto the cannons, but I did pull my auxiliary troops, some spearmen, to tie them up, and they're doing a pretty decent job. Over here, the Tempelhof is continuing to shoot. I think my opponent figured that it had already done its damage. There wasn't that many great targets left for it, so he just was ignoring it, but these Greatswords were able to make quick work of those Blood Knights with VOLKMAR's help. With those buffs, he can turn infantry into serious machines. And you can see the Free Company Militia are now taking pot shots at these Cryptors after kind of developing a pocket right here, and the Spearmen, you know, I figured I didn't need that many over there because these Spearmen are going to handle these beat-up Cairn Rates fairly easily. So, and VOLKMAR, of course, is in there with his bombardment abilities, and things are going pretty well, guys. But, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of it just came down to his Lord getting cheesed out. I mean, that was brutal. I mean, I felt a little bad about it, but it's so funny when that happens. It just see the Lord go on his cart with his bell and just get popped like that. It's always good for a laugh. So a lot of the Vampire Count's troops are starting to crumble. Again, having that massive leadership hit in the beginning, and you can see the Free Company Militia actually doing pretty good. So this group right here is going to go in and tie them up, and the Cryptors, they're kind of like, they serve a dual purpose of being like fodder units and pretty good against units with low armor. And then also Sterling's Revenge here was able to just punish those Cryptors up close, because these guys do have armor piercing, but regardless, they have fairly high combat stats like I was mentioning. So most of the flanks are secure, and at this point, I believe it was just a group of Blood Knights out there. And another thing too is he did have the Sternsmen actually auto-pathing after those Free Company Militia, and I think they were just outrunning them very well. So again, not the most competitive game in the world. I mean, not by any fault of my opponent. He simply just got cheesed out by the Tempelhof. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that funny situation there. And you guys can see, against Vampire Counts, this little combination of these two here can do serious damage to their forces before they get to you. So anyways, good game to my opponent over here. I hope to see you again on ladder, and hopefully your Lord won't get one-shotted again. Definitely not a fun situation to be in. It actually happened to me a few times with Tempelhof, where like it would blast one of my Lords, take him down to like 10%, and, you know, inspired me to try it myself. So again, good game. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. It was a lot of fun, and I'll see you all soon. More content coming soon.